All right, this is Artie, and this is his Roadmap to Success video. Artie, sit. Sit, good boy. And his guardian wanted to contact us to help figure out how we can help him relax and not bark at people, and then respect some personal boundaries and space. So one of the things that we wanted to do today is we went over the escalating consequences, and that's to help him learn how to respect these invisible boundaries. Remember that you want to be doing the leadership exercise for the next 2 weeks, once a day. As you practice it, it's only going to get stronger, and you should move through the exercise quickly. I do want to remind you that if, Artie, sit. I do want to remind you that as you practice this, he might start to anticipate that when you turn sideways that you're about to give him permission. If you turn sideways and he starts to get out of the down position, go ahead and correct him and don't give him the treat. Make sure that he's waiting respectfully for you to give him permission by tapping on the floor. That's just to anticipate that he'll probably start to push the buttons right there. And then I want to refer to the video above this one for setting invisible boundaries around the kitchen table, but also remind you that you can set these invisible boundaries anywhere. For example, if he's bugging you while you're making your bed and he turns that into a game, teach him that he has to go into the other room, so you can start to set the invisible boundary at your door frame. If he is going to try to bark at anyone in the house, tell him that he has to go out of the room and he can only come back into the room when he's nice and calm. You can do this at whether you're here living in Omaha or you go back home to visit your family. Keep these rules and structures in place. That way it'll be easier to transition him when he comes back home. We went out on a nice structured walk, or what we call a structured walk, which is when we use that martingale collar, and that's to help teach him to stop pulling on the leash. On our website, dogonproblems.com, if you click on dog training tips, and then in the search term bar, you type in structured walk, we have a bunch of videos on how to go about the structured walk, how to set up that martingale collar, so that way if you need to have any referral videos, you have that available for you. Remember that the basic rules are, if you're walking forward, you use the correction to go up and down really quick to correct him from pulling forward or pulling to the side where he's trying to sniff the grass and do his own thing. Artie. So if he starts to do that, you pull back. However, if he's starting to walk behind you, you just keep your arm nice and straight and just keep on walking. Keep your shoulders nice and square and keep moving forward. If he starts to be reactive to another dog or a person while you're on your walk, there's 2 different methods you can do, and that's going to kind of depend on the situation. If you have the ability to turn and walk away for a second and help him then stand there calmly with the leash loose, do that. If you don't, and you're walking by a house and a dog comes racing out to bark at the fence or something like that, just keep walking by. In order to help him with his dog reactivity, you can use this a specific method that we talked about, which is like, say when you're at home, find locations where you know there's dogs out barking quite often. That will get him worked up. Sit. Good boy. And what you want to do in those situations is start to walk towards wherever that house is with the dog is that's going to start barking and get him worked up. As you walk closer, if he starts to bark or get reactive, you just turn and walk away. So every time he starts to get reactive, you turn and walk away, turn and walk away. Over time, Artie, good boy. Over time, what you can do is get him to the point where he can walk by the dog by doing this kind of progressional effort. Like every time he starts to bark, you move away, and then you try again. You start to walk closer, and then move away. Over time, you'll eventually get to the point where you're walking by the house with him nice and calm. The other things you can do to help him stay nice and calm is redirect his attention. So for example, when you mentioned that there's like parties, not parties, but like big events and there's bars and a lot of noise going on in the neighborhood and it makes him anxious, redirect his attention. Just like what happened, someone else was moving around in the house, so he went to bark. I called him over and asked him to go into a sit, and just gave him something new to do. Dogs can only focus on one thing at a time, so if you can redirect his attention to do something, like you can teach him to spin, and just kind of lure him in a circle and then give him a treat when he's done. Just give him different things to do. So that'll get his mind off of whatever he wants to be reactive to and onto something more positive, and then hopefully that'll help settle him right down. Okay. Sit. And one other thing that I want to mention is remember our petting with a purpose. Every time you pet him, you're rewarding his behavior. So if he were to be barking at something and you pet him at that time, that's reinforcing that behavior. So instead, don't pet him during those times. Think before you pet him, do that again. If you wouldn't want him to do whatever he's doing again, then don't pet him. You can redirect his attention if you need to. But you also want to have him start sitting before you pet him. So ask him to sit and then you pet him. He can be up on your lap afterwards or stand up and you can play a game. It's just really like him saying please and having manners. And the last thing I want to mention is that everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it. Boy. Good. Awesome.